Hey guys, Galactic Knight here. Recently, people have been saying video games aren't what they used to be, and in some respects, they're right. Video games have evolved over the years with graphics, gameplay, and of course, storytelling. And other times, companies have found ways to exploit it and to take all our hard-earned cash. But recently, some gaming communities can be more harsher than others. I'm not saying what some of the criticisms are due to YouTube guidelines, but most of the criticisms are due to current years. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of gaming fails during 2020 and even now, but my problem is a lot of people have forgotten that there was a dark age of video games. A time where we had to deal with more bad games than good ones. I remember this dark age of video games. I can pinpoint the timelines of the event. It was from 2006 to 2013. I'm not saying all games from that timeline were bad. Once in a while you get a decent one, and there are video games that are terrible before then and terrible after. But many people can name more bad games than that timeline more than any other. But before I get to that, I want to talk about how it got there. In 1983, the video game market crashed due to poor sales from Atari's E.T. and Pac-Man ports. But then Nintendo came onto the scene with their console hit, the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES for short, bringing video games back onto the market. But some critics for the time thought video games were mainly just for kids. That is until a little game called Mortal Kombat was created. Showing off digital blood and gore caused an outbreak amongst the concerned populace and even started the Entertainment Software Rating Board, or ESRB, to assign age-rated games. But even then, video games weren't considered to be in the story-driven department yet. But a little game came onto the scene in 1998 called Metal Gear Solid. Showed that video games can not only be a fun pastime, but it could be art, giving dark and realistic storytelling while including good gameplay and graphics. And like most things we discovered, we got too greedy and exploited it like hell. Soon, every game had to be dark or dramatic, no more kid-friendly games, and more edgy guns blazing with characters swearing.
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
Sorry, couldn't resist. Don't get me wrong, some games worked, but for others, not so much. Yeah, when you try to make Sonic and Bomberman look more realistic, something must have gone wrong. For example, a franchise like Devil May Cry and Legend of Zelda can pull off dark and dramatic, but a franchise like Bomberman and Sonic the Hedgehog could not. Another problem during this time, a lot of franchises and companies were failing around this time, physically and financially. Duke Nukem bombed after fans waited years for it to be released. Alien Colonial Marines was laughably bad due to the game having one coding error. Baby, hello my honey. And probably one of the worst games to come out on any console, Right the Hell Retribution.
They scream and scream. It's funny.
And those were some of the top 3 that were known to be bad. This was also the time many franchises have died. Like I said, Bomberman and Duke Nukem killed their franchises from ever coming back. Microsoft pretty much killed off many of the Rare franchises, not to mention all the company shutdowns during this time. Hell, even the AAA studios weren't doing so good. Capcom has been doing poorly due to their sequels and remakes being panned. Sony has lost a lot of customer respect with the controversies of the PlayStation 3. Even Nintendo had problems during that time. Other end pissed off die-hard Metroid fans on how they portrayed Samus and the other characters.
Thanks to the Hyper Beam, which was given to me somehow by the baby.
Some of their spin-off titles of the beloved franchises were mediocre at best. And then there was the 2007 E3 presentation.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
Well, that was a disaster.
Yeah, there was that. I'm embarrassed for everyone that experienced that. And because these companies and games kept repeating the same mindset of gamers wanting mature and dark-themed video games, then actually be good, gamers were just expecting the opposite. Remember Elder Scrolls Skyrim? It was a good game, right? But when that game came out, people acted like it was the second coming. Everybody was shocked. A video game that could be clever and good at the same time. And don't get me wrong, it's a fun game, but back then, fun was amazing. Everything that was written, clever, and entertaining was rare. It was a gigantic hit, and critics and gamers praising it for years. And yeah, there were good ones like Mario Galaxy and others, but there were other times where video games just didn't put the effort into it, and the worst part was we just accepted it. We thought what we bought was going to be what we got, so we just accepted the bad games as just bad and didn't do anything about it. Because back then, when a bad game comes out, it just stays a bad game. And there was nothing that could be done about it. So when did this begin to change? I guess when they decided to stop doing the trends of the past. I guess it started when Watch Dogs came out and people were upset about being lied to about the downgrade of graphics. And even though I'm one of those gamers that don't mind the graphics as long as it doesn't affect the gameplay, I can see why some people are more upset about that. Plus, more companies realized that good games had to be playable to be good games. Hell, even now, if the game comes out bad, companies just make a patch for it years later. Which wasn't a big deal nowadays, but back in the dark age of gaming, just the mere idea of fixing a bad game was just non-existent. We start getting more and more complaints and criticisms online, and that makes companies work better at their games. Soon, games became better in graphics and storytelling than just being dark and depressing. Most of the time. They start becoming more inversed with their worlds, making us feel for the characters that aren't even real. Even some ideas that were bad in the past made a comeback. Franchises like Sonic and Donkey Kong made a comeback. More independent games began to be put and sold onto consoles. And even games based on movies and shows began to be entertaining. And those were bombs back in the day. What I'm trying to say is, for one, no matter how bad some games turn out, they could have gotten a lot worse back then. So Cyberpunk was bad when it first came out. They at least fixed it than Duke Nukem Forever. So the Suicide Squad game bombed. It was better than Ride to Hell. Second, I think we're still going to get different outlooks in the gaming industry as a whole. We're still going to get good, bad, and even disappointing video games. And gamers are going to have different opinions on certain games more than others. But I am glad that, like we humans, video games can grow and evolve for years to come.
No! It very much did not get him. Waller, blow up his head!
I'm Galactic Knight, and I'll see you guys next time.